So I've had the Samsung A17 for about 2 weeks now, and in this video going to be talking about my experience using it, the whole Zimbabwean perspective on the Samsung A17. For context, I'm coming from a Samsung A70, which came out around 6 or 7 years ago and was only supported up to Android 12. So any comparisons that I make in this video are from that perspective. With that out of the way, let's get into it. Also, a side note, I'd like to apologize in advance. This place that I'm renting, you can see the walls are a bit messy, but it's a residential area, so there are a bunch of kids playing outside. There might be their mothers yelling at them. So keep that in mind when hearing a bunch of sounds in the background. I'll also try to keep my mic close to my mouth so you can hear more of me. But with that out of the way, let's get into it. So starting with the design, I got the A17 in this sky blue colorway, but the colorway didn't matter to me as much because I put a case on it as soon as I got it. I didn't want to mess it up. But if the colors actually matter to you, I will put the other colors up on the screen for you to get a look at what you might want to choose and what you might like. So the phone has these matte finished sides with rounded corners that make it feel comfortable to hold. It looks clean, feels premium enough for the price, and overall, I'm a fan of the design. That said, it is fairly a large phone, so if you have smaller hands, you might find it a bit difficult to use one-handed. We also have a side-mounted fingerprint sensor. It usually takes around 2 seconds to register, which isn't the fastest, but because of the way I naturally hold my phone, it's actually really convenient. The only downside that I can think of is that it occasionally unlocks accidentally when I'm just trying to check the time or glance at any notifications. But other than that, it's fairly good. It's a good fingerprint sensor. Takes a little bit of time to unlock, but it's great. The positioning is great, and the phone feels a bit premium for the price because of the matte finish, and although it does have a plastic bag. The A17 packs a 5000 mAh battery, and for me, it comfortably lasts the day. I'm a pretty heavy user, averaging around 7 hours of screen on time, or 7 hours or more. There was a day that I clocked like 10 hours each day, and this is mostly using mobile data rather than Wi-Fi because I do not have Wi-Fi. I mostly have mobile data. So I usually plug it in once it reaches around 20%, and with a proper 25-watt charger, I had to buy a charger because it doesn't come with a charger. A full charge takes about an hour and a half, and if it's down, like really down to 5%, it might take a little bit more, like 1 hour 45, but usually it takes an hour and a half using a super fast charger. And of course, this is a budget phone, there's no wireless charging, and yeah, but honestly, who expects it at this price point? This is a budget phone. So overall, the battery life has been one of the biggest highlights of this phone, and this is where the Zimbabwean perspective comes in. I haven't had power for 2 nights now. Yeah, it's 2 nights, and I've been averaging like charging the phone in the morning, then yeah, I've been charging the phone in the mornings, and I usually reach around 11 p.m. with around 15 to 20%. Then I wait to charge it again in the morning. That's why I don't have it right now. I had to put it on the charger, but it's been working fine, and the battery is the one plus that I have with this phone. It's the major advantage for this phone. For people who do not have reliable power, the battery is a plus. For the display, we get a 6.7-inch Super AMOLED panel with a 90 Hz refresh rate, and honestly, it looks really good. So compared to my old A70, the difference is immediately noticeable. On my previous phone, I'd often have to increase the brightness just to watch videos because darker scenes would lose contrast. On the contrary, with the A17, the display stays vibrant even at lower brightness levels, and you can clearly tell the difference between a 360 and 720p YouTube video because everything that just looks much sharper. Maybe it's because it's a new phone or what, but I could actually tell the difference between a 1080p and a 720, which I usually couldn't when I had the A70, my old phone. So the brightness has also been excellent. The test put it somewhere between 80 and just over 1,000 nits, and from my experience, that seems pretty accurate. Even under the harsh Zimbabwean sun, I've never had trouble seeing the screen. You can actually notice the phone boosting its brightness in those bright situations. So overall, this is an excellent display for a phone at this price range. So moving on to software, the phone came with Samsung's One UI 8, which is based on Android 16. Then after a software update that I did when I bought it, it moved on to Samsung's One UI 8.5. So software is honestly the thing that makes this phone feel much more expensive than it actually is. From the refreshed app icons to Samsung's features like the Now bar, which appears on the lock screen, and the notification panel when you are just playing music, everything on this phone feels polished. Okay, so on the software side, what features do I actually think are useful in One UI 8.5 that I've actually used? So first is the Now bar. I think it's actually useful. It works on a couple of apps like the torch, the media player, and the alarm clock. So you can have that. You can have also the timer. I think the timer works. Yes, the timer works on the Now bar when it's locked on the lock screen, and you can swipe up to see the active apps that work with the Now bar. That's actually useful. Then also we have circle to search. I don't usually use it, but I find myself just saying, "Hey." I don't want to trigger any AIs, but I usually find myself just saying, "Hey," then asking a quick question. That works well, but your phone has to be unlocked in order for that to work. Then it's just like the little different apps that the updated app icons that I think are really nice. Then yeah, there's nothing else that I think has been useful. As a college student, I just use my AIs. I use Gemini, I use Claude, I use ChatGPT. Then I use YouTube for the tutorials that I watch so that I can code some stuff. And that's it. So powering the A17 is Samsung's Exynos 1330 processor paired with 4 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage. In day-to-day use, performance has actually been pretty good. It handles social media messaging and productivity apps and multitasking without any major issues. Where I noticed the biggest limitation is the 4 gigs of RAM. So if you leave an app open in the background for a while and you come back to it later, chances are it will reload from scratch, meaning you lose whatever you were doing before. Samsung does include RAM Plus, which uses some of the phone's storage as virtual memory, but personally I haven't really needed to rely on it, but I did notice the phone slowing down a bit while editing a 1080p video in CapCut. So personally, on the performance side, what I usually use my phone for is social media apps, Instagram, the WhatsApp, the Facebook, and the main thing that I use my phone for is YouTube. I watch a lot of YouTube videos. I download and then watch them offline. And in the 2 weeks that I've have it in using social media apps and watching YouTube, and as I have started college right now, I'm about to start my second semester. I'll be using it more for the AI stuff, for research. I haven't had any problems with it. It does tend to slow down a little bit when I have too many apps open, but you can have like 5 to 10 apps open and it will still feel smooth, and it it feels great to use. And I haven't had any problems using the A17. Now let's talk about the cameras. So I don't think anyone buying a budget phone, a budget Galaxy A series phone, is expecting flagship level cameras, and that's true here as well. On the back you get 3 cameras. The main one is a 50 megapixel sensor, although by default it captures 12 megapixels photos using pixel binning. But how do the photos actually look? Honestly, they're decent. So they can be a little bit over sharpened and don't have the strongest contrast. But if you give them enough light, they'll produce perfectly usable photos that most people will be happy with. The other 2 cameras are a 5 megapixel ultra wide and a 2 megapixel macro camera. The ultra wide is nice to have occasionally, but I honestly don't see myself using the macro camera very often. For a zoom, you get up to 10x digital zoom, but anything beyond about 2x start looking pretty muddy. On the front, there is a 13 megapixel selfie camera. For photos, it's good as long as you have plenty of light, but what actually surprised me was the selfie video cameras. So the video quality is noticeably better than I expected from a phone at this price. As for video recording, both the front and the rear cameras are limited to 1080p at 30 frames per second. So this is indoor selfie video at full HD, which is 1080p, and you're hearing the sound from the mics on the phone on the A17. And for lighting, I'm only using this window that is right here. How does it look? Okay, now we are watching the 1080p footage from the rear cameras, the main camera. This is the 1x, and also I'm still using the one window that I have. Just punch in to see. This is still the 1x. So now this is the 2x. It's looking a bit muddy. This is the 4x. Then this is the 10x. Then I'm going to go right back to 0.5x. 0.5x. This is the wide angle. And you can see the color difference from the 0.5x to the 1x. As you can see, the blues, it has changed. It's less saturated than the FX. As you can see, it shows the real blue. This is the color that I'm actually seeing, that you can see on the 0.5x. On the 1x, it's like less saturated. You can see from this blue, it's the same blue as that smoke gas tank on the corner there. So yeah, maybe it's because of the light and the way it's hitting on this Manila, which makes it change the color, but that's what it looks like. So the footage isn't going to blow anyone away, but it's perfectly usable. There's still a bit of over sharpening, but my philosophy has always been, as long as you can clearly capture what you wanted to record, the camera has done its job. So for final thoughts and recommendations, what do I personally think? Should you buy the A17 or not? So I bought the A17 it was brand new, boxed. There's the box right there. I bought it for 160 US dollars, while the 6 gig RAM version costs around $20 more. which I strongly recommend that you get, because this phone gets a little bit slow after some time if you have too many apps open on it. Then what I do strongly recommend, if you have a little bit more money, I would recommend that you opt for the higher up budget phones like the A37 and the A57, because those give you a little bit more in the performance side. And I think because this phone, personally, good luck doesn't work on it, so those cool customization things don't work on this phone, and you get like a little bit of a cut down version of One UI 8.5. So I would strongly recommend that you spend the extra little money on buying the higher up, the A37 and the A57 variants, because this phone, as great as it is lacking a bit on the performance side. But however, if you're coming from a phone that's 3 or 4 years old and want a modern smartphone without spending a fortune, this is the budget king. The biggest upgrades you will notice are the battery life, the gorgeous AMOLED display, and Samsung's excellent software experience, which genuinely makes the phone feel much more premium than it suggests. So yeah, that's what I think about the Samsung A17. So if you're shopping for a phone on a budget, the Samsung A17 gets the job done. And for me, it's a phone that I'll probably be happy using for the next few months. And honestly, I think this is the new budget king for the software, the screen, and everything that it gives me. But with that out the way, thank you for watching.